Hey guys, welcome back to Carly's Creations. I am Carly and I'm sorry that it's been a while since I've launched a video. It's been a little crazy, but I think before I jinx myself, things are slowly starting to get on track. So I am back. And today I'm going to make a part fabric, part glitter tumbler. This is a Christmas order and she wanted peacock on the top, so I got this material, which was, believe it or not, a little harder to find than I thought. I ended up finding this at Walmart, and then she said any peacock colored glitter on the bottom, so it's kind of been left up to me. So I'm going to go with the blues and greens down on the bottom. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to use a 20-ounce Ozark tumbler. The only thing I did so far is I did spray the bottom a little bit, the base color of the glitter that I'm going to use. Now I'm not going to use this exact color, but it's going to help save on glitter. So obviously we don't have to worry about the top because that's where we're going to put fabric. Okay, so we're going to set that aside right now. Still a little wet. And then we are going to measure out our fabric. Now obviously I got way more than what I need, but I will use it for other things. Okay, so what we're going to do, so I'm going to flip this over. Okay. I just want to measure to see how much fabric I will need as far as all the way around. All right, so right about there is where I'm going to cut it. And this is very similar to doing just a fabric tumbler. The only difference is we're not going to bring our fabric, my goodness, excuse me, fabric all the way down like we did in the other video, because that's where we're going to put the glitter. So there's no point in adding fabric down on the bottom when we're just going to cover it up anyways. No need to waste materials. Okay. Can't for the life of me find my fabric scissors, so these will have to do. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut across. All right, there we go. We're gonna set this aside for another project. Okay. Spread out my work surface a little bit. Okay. All right, so we do have a little bit of an overlay, which is what I wanted. Not a lot, you just want a little bit. Again, this part is very similar to the video, the other fabric video that I did. So see, there's a little bit of overlay, but that's what we want. We want that little bit of seam there. And I'm going ahead, I'm going to cut off some of this excess down at the bottom. Like I said, we don't have to go all the way down to the bottom with this one, fabric wise. Okay. All right, there we go. So we're going to come up a little bit like that, and then it's just not going to go all the way to the bottom. We're just going to have that blue peeking out because we're going to add glitter kind of fading up to the top here. So all right, we're going to go ahead and add the glue. I use the Mod Podge, which is right here, and I will link everything down below for you. I can't link the fabric because I can't really link the fabric. It was just fabric that I found at Walmart, but you can find fabric, I mean, as most of you know, anywhere. Joann's, Walmart, and Hobby Lobby, all kinds of places have fabric. So I just happened to find some there. Luckily, it was harder to find than I thought, for at least the kind of fabric that she was wanting for the look. So All right, we're just going to cover the cup in the Mod Podge. And while I'm doing this, if you haven't joined my group yet, we would love to have you. It's Carly's Kreations Tumblers and more. I do a lot of sneak peeks on the new glitter colors that are coming in. I do glitter giveaways, and it's just a fun group. Good group of people, so we would love to have you. Feel free to join. Show us what you got. All right. I will be doing another contest soon too. The last contest I did, I had someone, I did a name that glitter contest for one of the new colors I had coming in, and if I pick your name, then you win a sample of that glitter. So that was fun. I think I'm going to do that again. I have some more colors coming in. If you want to see them, make sure you join the group. All right, so we're going to place the fabric. I do put a little bit on top. I make a little bit of a lip, which we'll cut off later on, but that way I get full coverage up to the top. You want to make sure it's completely smooth. No dimples or ripples. You don't want a bumpy cup. So I just pull it a little bit at a time and then kind of run with my fingers. The glue is going to come through the fabric. You're going to get glue in your hands. That's kind of how crafting goes. You can always wear gloves if you want. And you're just going to kind of work around with the fabric here. Make sure it's nice and smooth. No bumps. It does not have to be even on the bottom because we are covering that up. So it doesn't matter. You just want it low enough, obviously, to where the glitter is going to be. All right. You can see little parts like the white right here coming through. That's just the glue, and I kind of just rub it with my fingers. All right. Now, for me, the seam is the hardest part when it comes to fabric tumblers because you want to try to hide that seam as best as possible. All right. I'm going to cut off a little bit of this extra right here. Not much, but just a little bit. So we don't have so much of an overlay. We're just going to try to blend that as best as possible. So I'm going to cut off some of that fraying right there. Weird angle. All right. Okay. All right. Just kind of keep working with it until you get it pattern-wise to where you want it. So I think that's probably about as good as we're going to get as far as the seam goes. So I'm going to add some glue underneath right here. And if you haven't watched the other video and you haven't worked with the Mod Podge, it will dry clear. So don't worry about it being white. That won't matter. And you're going to add a lot of it to this cup. You want to add enough layers on here that your fabric feels like plastic. That way when you go to add your epoxy, it's not going to seep through. All right, there we go. This little string. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slather this fabric in glue. Whoop. If you don't have enough of the glue on here and you add your epoxy, it's going to look like wet spots. It's going to seep through that fabric and look wet, and that's obviously, you don't want that. So don't be shy on the Mod Podge here. You want to get it on there. We're going to add probably about 6 layers of the glue. I've seen where some people do more, some people do less. Do what you're comfortable with. I do it until my fabric is like a hard plastic consistency. And it's a little colder here today. It is December, so it's chilly outside. So my glue is going to take a little bit longer to dry than it normally does, obviously, in July. You'll know it's dry when it turns clear. It'll be dry enough to do your next coat. Okay, make sure you bring it down to the bottom. You want to make sure all that fabric is covered. Make sure you bring it all the way to the top, that you're getting enough in there. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to set this down and we're going to let it dry. And we're going to do that about 5 more times. And then when we're done, we're going to go ahead and cut that fabric off the top here. And then we'll add some glitter. Okay, so we'll be back. Okay, so we got our first layer of glue on and dry. It's slightly tacky, but it's dry enough to do this next part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim the top part of this cup. Don't mind my nasty nail. Oh, work of an artist, right? I'm going to trim this excess off here, and then we're going to put some glue and kind of push that down a little bit. So the way I do it, so I'm going to kind of push it out a little bit, not too far. And I'm just going to get my scissors and I'm going to go right around the rim of the cup. There we go. So now you'll notice that it's kind of, kind of coming out a little bit here. We're going to put some glue in there. I just rub the glue right on the inside there, and then make sure I just push down really hard. Just so we make sure we get all the inside there. Okay, almost. And then we're just going to keep adding our layers of glue until we get that plastic texture we're looking for the fabric. Okay, there we go. And if you have, some strays up here, don't worry about it. We'll get those later when we start to clean up the rim of the cup and sand it and all that. You just want to make sure it's going to stick really well to the top there. All right. Now we're going to add another layer of the glue. Like I said, we're just going to keep doing this. I do probably 6 to 8 coats, roughly. Sometimes I'll literally just do an extra one just for peace of mind, because I've done it before where I thought I've had enough coverage, and then I epoxy the cup and there's wet looking marks randomly throughout the cup, and I've had to strip the whole thing and do it again. So whenever you're in doubt, always add another layer. It's never going to hurt the cup, but it's always going to cover you for sure. All right. Just make sure it's all smooth. And there we go. All right. I'm literally just going to keep coming back throughout the day. Actually, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to come back throughout the day. It dries, I add another layer. It dries, I add another layer. These do take extra time to do, but this is going to come out so pretty. So, all right, stay tuned. We'll be back. Okay, welcome back. So we have about 6 to 7 layers of the Mod Podge on the fabric here. and you can see there is a little bit of glitter in there, which is why you want to do your Mod Podge in a separate little container each time, because if you're like me, then you get a bunch of glitter in your main thing, and in this case it's not a big deal, but generally speaking, you know, you might not necessarily want it in there. So it's always a good idea to just kind of get one of your little cups and put some glue in there separately. That way it's not getting in. So anyways, total side note. So what we're going to do now is around the feathers here, we're going to go ahead and add some glitter to kind of enhance those little circles there a little bit. And then we're going to add our glitter to the bottom. So the glitter that we're going to use, this is going to be on the bottom. It's Peachy Olive Glitters Weekend at Bernie's. And this is a blue, and it has little tiny specks of green in it, which are perfect peacock colors. And then we're also going to use Peachy Olive Glitters Kermit Wazowski. That's also the green I use on my Northern Stars, or my Northern Lights tumblers. So it's a really, really pretty, you can see it right here. It's a really pretty bright green. If you ever need a bright green, that's definitely a good color to go to. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and add the glitter on the bottom first, and then we're going to work our way up. And if you can kind of see the green here is where we're going to add some of that Kermit Wazowski in there. And I may even add some of the Weekend at Bernie's in there. So, all right, let's get cracking. Okay, so I'm just going to use this brush. You can use a foam brush too if you want. Whatever works better for you. And we're going to add glue on the bottom. And I'm not going to come up too far. I don't want the glitter to come up too much. I just want to have some kind of fading up from the bottom. I think this is where the brush comes in handy, because you can kind of get those little wispy brush strokes there that will help kind of give that blending look. In my mind anyways. We'll see how it actually comes out. Sorry, I stutter over my words sometimes because I'm so busy trying to figure out what I'm doing that I almost get tongue-tied, and then I forget what I'm talking about, and then I sound weird. Okay. All right. Don't mind the mumbling. All right. There we go. And this is the Weekend at Bernie's. So I'm going to add on the bottom here a little bit first. And she didn't specify what color. She said peacock colors. So she did show me a picture of another peacock tumbler for kind of inspiration look, and it was a chunky glitter on the bottom, but I had this one. I thought this is perfect peacock colors. Okay, now same with the ombre. I'm going to tilt my cup up, and I apologize, it's going to come out of frame for a little bit, and I'm just going to hold that glitter up. There we go. Alright. It's pretty okay for the first coat. The second coat, I'm going to bring the glue up just a little bit more, just so I don't get such a definite line there. And I'll go ahead and do that on the second coat. So for right now, we're just going to go ahead and set this aside. And then we're going to go ahead and move to the Kermit Wazowski. So for this step, I did put it in my little measuring cup. I feel like it just kind of makes it a little bit easier than trying to mess around with the bag. Okay, so I'm just going to get a very fine-tipped brush. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. And I'm just going to trace around where that green is. And you can kind of see on the fabric there's some blue up there, so I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to put the green there. I'm just putting green glitter where I see the green. The whole beauty with the peacock feather is you have all these different colors that kind of all blend. Okay. And we're just going to dump our glitter on there. Alright. Get some of that excess off. I'll let that dry for a minute before I play with it anymore. And I'll add probably a little bit of light blue in there, and then pull in some of the bottom color up here too. That way it doesn't look just like a circle. Okay, I'm gonna come up here to this little guy up here. Okay, there's that one. And then just kind of keep going around the whole cup. You're going to keep doing the same thing. Just kind of where you see that green. You're just going to add your glue and your green. There we go. Once that dries, then I'll be able to kind of move it around a little bit more. And then we're just going to keep kind of going all around the cup. And I'm just going to keep doing that to all these little circles. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to blend a little bit more of the colors, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so we have all the green around, and now I'm going to try to just blend some of these colors a little bit and kind of pull in a little bit of the greens and the teals. So this part right here where it's the light blue, I'm going to use some Recollections glitter. It's called Frost, and it's a really light blue. I want it kind of subtle. There we go. So you can kind of see a little bit, it's kind of hard to see on camera, some of those colors starting to blend a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the light blue around the inner part of some of these little circular feather parts. I'm just adding it on the bottom part there. Still gotta get all that extra glitter off. And that's just pulling in some of that blue. And this is the color, it's Recollections Frost. And this I actually got in a sample pack. I went to Michael's and they had this big pack with probably about 20 different sample colored glitters from the Recollections brand. And so I got that. The downside is I later found out that not all of those samples were offered in the larger size containers. So I had found a color that I really liked, only to find out that wasn't available in the bigger size containers, and it wasn't available just in the sample size. So if I wanted that one color, I'd have to buy a whole other pack of all of the sample colors, which I didn't, I mean, it's not like I wouldn't use them, but I didn't really want to do that. So that's the downfall there. Okay. All right, so we got a little bit of that blue added, and there's even a little bit of red. You can kind of see just at the very top, there's little specks of red. So I'm going to add in maybe a little bit of red. At this point, I'm kind of just experimenting, because the friend of mine that ordered this didn't really give any direction as far as what they wanted or didn't want. She said basically, we want Peacock, we want Peacock colors, and have fun and let us know how it goes. I said, okay. So this is kind of what we're going with here. So this is Red Hot, and you can find this one on my website. It's a really pretty red. This is an ultra fine glitter. And I do have it in stock right now. I'll put it down. I'll link all this stuff down below. I'm just going to pour just a little bit on there. There you go. Pull in a little bit of the red that's at the top. And there's very little of it. There's just little tiny hints of red. So I'm doing very, very little. I'm basically copying the fabric, if you couldn't tell that already. Now, when we're done with this, what you're going to want to do is you are going to want to spray it with, I'm going to add a little bit on here because I covered up some of that red with the green. You're going to want to use your Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Clear. That's what I use. So any type of sealer that you use that you find that works good for you, make sure that you seal it, if you're doing one like this, several times, because the last thing you want when you go to put your epoxy on is for all this glitter to start shifting all over the cup, because it really defeats the whole purpose of what you're doing. So you want this glitter to stick and to stay put. All right, so I'm trying to get out some of the little bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Weekend at Bernie's, and just a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit more above this light blue here. Very little. I'm just wanting to tie in those teals and those blues. And just kind of tie in some of those colors together. And you can go as crazy with this as you want. You can not do this part, just do the bottom. You can do all the feathers if you're really wanting to get crazy with it. You can do just little bits and parts like I'm doing. There we go. I'm going to add in some more there. And at this point, I'm kind of just playing with it and kind of seeing what looks good. I'm not necessarily adding the Weekend at Bernie's to all of these. I'm just adding to some of them, and I'm adding very little to them. But that kind of helps tie in all of this together here. So add a little bit at the top here. There we go. And I am going to let this dry overnight. I want to make sure that all of this is completely dry. And then I'll spray it probably 3 to 4 times at least with the clear sealer. And I use the Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Clear. It's the same sealer that I use on my water slides, and I use it for pretty much everything, just because I know that it works really well. So I'm not willing to chance it and risk it and use something else in the hopes that it may or may not work. So, okay. I think I'm going to leave those as is. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to do another coat down here, and I'm just going to fade this a little bit better. This is too much of a line for me. I want it to more kind of give an ombre effect of fading up the cup. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to let this sit overnight, spray it, epoxy it, and then we're going to add a name down here at the bottom. She wanted the name down below where you can actually see it, where it's a little bit more solid. So, all right, that's it for now. We'll be back for the next step. Okay, now it's time for the fun part. Okay, another fun part, because each part is its own fun part. We got the rest of the glitter on, and I did seal it about 2 times with the Rust-Oleum 2-time Ultra Clear. And so now we're going to go ahead and add the epoxy to it. And I say this is a fun part because this is, for me, when the cup kind of really comes to life. Once you start putting that epoxy on, everything is going to just shine up and just really stand out. And I just love seeing that part come all together. And you can see, just putting it on, that beautiful shine you get. There we go. The glitter comes to life, the fabric, everything. The sparkle comes out, and it's just really pretty. Beforehand, when I first started these, I was like, oh, I don't think this is going to come out very good. Like, it's not very shiny, and, you know, especially with these fabric tumblers. But it really does come to life. Move my bar up there a little bit. Move it down here on the bottom. Don't mind my kids outside playing. We're celebrating my oldest birthday. He turned 12 the other day. And so he has a friend over. It's slumber party day. And they all decided to migrate right out of the window of my shop. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure this is really well coated. Not necessarily a flood coat. Sorry, hold on. Be right back. Okay. Kick the kids away. I couldn't hear. So I'm gonna add just a decent amount. I'm not gonna do a flood coat or anything crazy, but I do want to make sure I get just a really good coat of coverage all over the cup here. And because it's colder, it does take longer to cure. So I'm gonna let this guy actually spin overnight. It's about 3:45 in the afternoon. So unless I'm wanting to stay up pretty late, which generally speaking, I don't. We're just going to let this spin. And I do kind of sit and babysit it for a few minutes. Sometimes with the fabric, you'll notice the epoxy kind of pulling down. And so I just make sure to stay, kind of monitor the cup for 5 to 10 minutes. And when I see it start to come down, I just move my finger back up and make sure it does go all the way up to the rim of the cup there. And I also give it about a minute or so to spin, and then I'll hit it with the heat gun and we'll get all those bubbles out. You can use a mini torch if you have that. I have a heat gun and that works for me, so whatever works best for you. And I do have a little bit of epoxy in my cup, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that and make a keychain out of it, because we are not wasting it. It's too expensive to waste, am I right? Alright, that looks good, so let's heat it with the heat gun. Make sure when you are going over it with your heat gun or your torch, you don't hold it over the epoxy in one spot for too long. The last thing you want to do is burn your epoxy after all the work you've done for this cup. So I just do, you know, like you saw, handful of swipes back and forth. It pops all the bubbles. Sometimes I'll let this spin for about 10 minutes and then I'll come back and hit it one more time if it's needed. Sometimes those bubbles take a few minutes to kind of come up to the top there. So, all right, we're gonna let this spin overnight, and then our next step would be to add the name. Okay, so we're back. We do have our first coat of epoxy on, and one of the first things I do is smooth out some of these rough edges down here at the bottom. So to do that, I'll get my sanding block. Doesn't have to be sanding block, it could be any kind of sandpaper that you have. If you have a finer grit, you'll need to do it probably a little bit more force-wise. If you have a rougher grit, which is what I have here, I'm not going to put as much force because I don't want to scratch the glitter. I'm just looking to get a little bit of that roughness off. So I'm going to get it and just kind of softly rub around those edges just a little bit, like that. Okay? And then I will go ahead and rub it down with some rubbing alcohol with a clean cloth when I'm done, just to make sure that the cup is completely clean and there's no dust particles left inside for that final coat. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and add the name. I'm going to put my cup to the side for a minute. I do have the name cut out, and I promised to make a video on how I cut the name out this week to get that launched for you. So it's been a little crazy around here, and I apologize. I haven't been as fast as I normally am, so it's coming. Okay, so I'm just going to very carefully remove the vinyl from the name. Make sure you pull very slowly. That way you're not ripping up any of the letters. And I do use a permanent vinyl. If you don't have a permanent vinyl on hand, it's probably not that big a deal because it is going under epoxy. But just as a general rule, I always do use permanent vinyl. The only times that I don't is when I'm doing a peekaboo cut because I want that vinyl to come off. Okay, so now we're going to get just the center of the letters here. Okay, there we go. So there's our name. All right, now as far as applying it to the cup, what I'm going to do, and this is what I do, it's personal preference. You do what you want and what your customer wants. But what I do personally is I look for the seam, which is right here, and I go to the opposite end of the cup. So I put my quote or my word or my name on the opposite side of the seam. Again, personal preference. Okay, so we're going to put it down here in the glitter, and it's actually a good spot because it's kind of right in the middle of all of these little feathers right there. I'm going to get my transfer tape. I'm going to put it down on here. Make sure you rub it down nice and good so you can get that name off. Again, pull slowly. Okay. And then you're just going to look for where you want to place it. Make sure you have it on as straight as you can. And I push down in the middle. And then move to one side. And then to the other side. Okay. Just press down nice and firmly. And then again, slowly remove the tape. If it comes up like that, not a problem. Lay it back down. That just means it's not pushed hard enough on there. There we go. Okay, we have our name on there. The last thing I'm going to do is I do add my sticker, my logo down at the bottom of the cup. I've heard a lot of people back and forth about whether they should put it on or they do put it on. I always have. The only time I don't is if it's a guy's cup, because my logo is a little bit more on the feminine side. So typically with guys' cups, I'll leave that out and maybe just do some plain font down at the bottom, or I'll leave it plain. But otherwise speaking, I do always put my logo on the bottom. I've actually had people who said they're glad that it's there, because when they ask, where they got their cup, then they can show them just the sticker. And then I do have my logo linked to all of my social media accounts. It's on my YouTube channel, my Pinterest, my Instagram, my Facebook, everywhere. So it's very easy for someone to find me. And that's why I like that system. So I do that. Personal preference. Some people I see add water slides on there. Some people don't add anything on there. So that's totally up to you. So there's our cup so far. We're going to go ahead and get that final coat of epoxy on, and then we'll be all set, and I will show you the final product.